All right, we'll go ahead and get started. Once again, this event will be recorded and it will be currently on our Facebook Live feed. So you should see the link in the chat. If you can share, you can go to that link and you'll see the video and you can share it, and it will you can share it to whatever page that you may follow or pages that you are an administrator of. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening for another event in our Know Your Power series. My name is Thomas Varela. I serve as the Director of Advocacy and Communications for the Urban League of Philadelphia. We want to thank you for joining us for this important conversation. As we know, May 17th is an upcoming election. Elections are twice a year, every year. And in 2022, we have a very important election with a lot of important positions and candidates on the slate. And we want to have this conversation to ensure that everyone is prepared to vote. We as a nonpartisan organization have partnered with other nonpartisan organizations to bring this important conversation to you. We do ask, you are free to use the chat. We ask organizations, if you have upcoming partner organizations, if you have information that you would want to share, you can feel free to share it in the chat. Once again, there is also a Facebook Live feed that you can share information there. We also recognize that if you are, if there's other information, if there happens to be candidates in the chat, we ask that you remain respectful, but we understand, once again, that this is a nonpartisan conversation, but recognize that there may be folks that are here with their own goals. So we just want to make sure that we are clear that this is a nonpartisan conversation with nonpartisan organizations. And so with that, I want to take a quick minute to acknowledge those organizations. We have Committee of 70. We have the Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. We have the Philadelphia Alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We have the Philadelphia branch of the NAACP. We have PA Youth Vote. We have the Philadelphia Coalition of Labor Union Women. We have the National Coalition of 100 Black Women, Pennsylvania Incorporated, Pennsylvania chapter. And we have two of our affinity groups of the Urban League Guild of Philadelphia and Next Philadelphia, which is our young professional arm of the Urban League. So we encourage you all to connect with these host organizations. Once again, these are all nonpartisan organizations that are all committed to ensuring that our community is exercising its right to vote. And we recognize this is all communities, but as we know, as we think about Black-led organizations in this current climate, we recognize the importance of ensuring that our rights are protected and our freedom to vote is executed. And so with that, I'm gonna have Lauren Christella from Committee of 70 come to the screen. Today, we're gonna talk a bit about what is this 2022 election? Not just who are the candidates, but more importantly, what are the positions that are being chosen? We recognize that many individuals may not clearly know who is what are the duties of the different positions. And it's important that people are clear with that. And then also people are clear with the information and that they are able to build their own ballot. And what does that mean? They have tools and resources so that they can build their own ballot based on the research that they've done on candidates. Because we know when you go to the polling booth, candidates are going to give you their ballot and they're going to make you believe this is the only ballot that exists. And right at the end of the day, we know that those are candidates. So they're going to try to steer you towards their position. But it's important that everyday citizens recognize the importance of their own ballot and their own education to ensure that they are ready in all elections. So with that, we're going to have Lauren Christella, who will quickly introduce herself and talk more about her work with Committee of 70.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here with all of you. I'm thrilled to be here with all of you and excited to share a lot of important resources. Exactly what Thomas said was correct. You are the hiring manager. This is a job that you're hiring for. So we're going to give you the job descriptions, every office on the ballot. We're going to walk through everything you need to know to vote confidently and successfully on May 17th. So let's get started. I'm the Chief Program Officer of the Committee of 70. And the Committee of 70 is a nearly 120-year-old nonpartisan nonprofit dedicated to educating and informing voters and making sure our government is representative of the people, transparent, and held accountable to their actions. So you can check out our resources. You're going to see lots of different things, and we're going to put them in the chat on Facebook so you can have access to all of them. So over the next half hour or so, maybe a little more, we're going to learn what's on the ballot, all your tools for learning about the candidates, and how to successfully cast your ballot, whether by mail or in person for that May 17th PA primary. So the most important thing is, what's your plan? What is the way you're going to make your voice heard on election day? It's important to know if you're going to vote by mail, you've got to apply by May 10th. We're going to go through all those dates and deadlines too. But if you're going to vote in person, you want to know who you're voting for before you head to the polls. As we just heard, you're going to be inundated with flyers and sample ballots and all kinds of different information from people you don't really know, telling you who to vote for. And so you don't know if those candidates align with your values and for what you want to see for your neighborhood, your community, and our city. So that's an important piece, right? So now's the time to make your plan. If you're going to vote in person, where's your polling place? What time of day are you going to vote? Those things, knowing those details in advance makes it far more likely that you and your friends and loved ones will also cast their ballot successfully on election day. Nothing's going to trip you up. Okay, important dates and deadlines to remember. May 2nd is the last day to register to vote. Pennsylvania is a closed primary state. That means if you want to vote on candidates on election day, you need to pick one of the two major parties. Independent voters, third-party voters do not get to vote on candidates on May 17th. So if you want to say in that, you have to pick a party by May 2nd. And you also just want to check your voter registration, make sure that the address is accurate. There's going to be an event with the Urban League on Thursday to walk you through all the details of how to do that process. May 10th is the last day to apply for a mail-in ballot. You can do that online. I'm going to show you the details of that. Don't wait. The earlier you do it, you'll be in that first batch of ballots sent out, and then you don't have to worry about the deadlines as you go, right? Getting that ballot, filling it out, and getting it back in time to the commissioners. May 17th is election day. So if you're voting in person or you have that mail-in ballot to give back to the city commissioners, May 17th is your day. Postmarks do not matter when mailing back your ballot. So your technical mail-in deadline, I would say, is more like May 12th. If you're going to put it in a Dropbox or bring it to City Hall, May 17th. Okay. Our county election office is at City Hall. This was a woman I met in 2020 whose dog literally ate her mail-in ballot. So she was there to receive a replacement ballot, which is a perfectly good thing to do. You can do that all the way up until May 17th if you've applied. If you lost your ballot, it was damaged, all of that, you can get a replacement all the way up until through election day, right? Until when those polls close at 8 p.m. Until May 2nd at City Hall, you can register to vote. You can apply for your vote by mail ballot and vote it right in person if you'd like until May 10th. And if you have any questions or you need help, that's a great place to go. You can go to your county election office. Some of the rules about registering to vote: you must be a United States citizen at least 30 days before the May 17th primary for this specific election, right? 30 days before any election. You must be a resident of Pennsylvania and in your election district for at least 30 days. And you must be at least 18 years of age on the day of the election. So if you have someone in your life turning 18 on May 12th, they can register to vote right now, which is great. So let's talk about vote by mail. Since that's an option, you want to get on that. If you're going to do that, apply sooner rather than later, fill it out, return it quickly. But some people are hesitant to do so. There was a lot of misinformation, disinformation about vote by mail. There's been a lot of efforts to repeal it in Pennsylvania. As of right now, this is a perfectly reasonable, legal way to cast your ballot in the May 17th primary. Your vote will count and be counted. So some myths that we hear a lot about vote by mail, that voting by mail will lead to voter fraud, that it's easy to cheat the system when people vote by mail. That's not true. So voter fraud in general is extremely rare. And there's no evidence that vote by mail encourages or further enables it. You actually need more ID to vote by mail than you do to vote in person, fun fact. And in Oregon, where they've been voting by mail since 2000, there have been, I don't even know how to say that number out loud, but that is a very, very low percentage of fraud. There's all kinds of systems in place that make it very hard to cheat that mail-in ballot. Myth number 2, mailing my ballot increases the risk my vote won't count. As long as you fill in that ballot properly, and we'll walk through exactly what that entails, there's some things to pay attention to for sure, and details that could trip you up. But if you know what to look for, know the steps, there's no reason to think if you were trying to by the deadline that your vote wouldn't count, right? You do all those steps, get it in by May 17th in the hands of the county election officials, your vote will count. Myth number 3, vote by mail gives one party an unfair advantage. The truth is that it just increases turnout. It's one more way to make the vote more accessible to more people. So what we do see is an increase in voter turnout. Now, right now, you're seeing a big disparity between Republicans and Democrats voting by mail, but that is because of the messaging and the misinformation around vote by mail. So we're seeing way more Democrats than Republicans choose this method for voting, but it really is an effective, safe way to cast your ballot, especially if you're still concerned about the pandemic. So to apply online, you'll need your valid PA driver's license or a photo ID from the Department of Transportation, or the last 4 digits of your social security number, and a photo of your signature. There's a form that we can share with you in the chat to request a mail-in ballot. You can take care of all of this online. You can also sign up to be a permanent mail-in ballot voter, but I want to make sure everyone understands that when you click that box, that just means you're signing up to receive your ballot for all the other elections this year, any special election, and then the fall, the November election. Next year, you would still, in 2023, you would still have to apply for a mail-in ballot. So if you voted by mail in 2020, you voted by mail in 2021, you still have to apply this year to receive a mail-in ballot. That's when permanent doesn't really mean permanent. Okay. This is what I just said. So other things to keep in mind, you can track your mail-in ballot. So that way, when they send it to you, if it does get lost in the mail, you're not waiting around to get your replacement until it's too late. You can track it at votespa.com, has everything you need to track your mail-in ballot. When you apply for the mail-in ballot, you can include your email address, and you will get email notifications about when it has been sent to you. And then after you receive it and fill it out, you will get an email notification when it's been received by your county. If you never get that notification, you go to the website and try to track it and it's not coming up, you can go to your county election office and get a replacement ballot, and they'll issue one right on the spot. You can vote it in person there, hand it right back to them. Okay, so that's mail-in balloting. So let's talk about what's on that ballot. We've got a lot of really important races. Pennsylvania is going to be in the national spotlight again. The balance of the US Senate is somewhat hinging on Pennsylvania. We have an open Senate seat. We also have our governor's office is on the ballot, lieutenant governor, House of Representatives, our state Senate and representatives, committee people, which are part of the Philadelphia ward system, and of course, our ballot questions here in Philadelphia. Let's go through these offices. So governor and lieutenant governor function similarly to president and vice president of the country, right? So this is our version of the executive and the vice president, right? The governor controls all the state departments and agencies. That means that person picks who is the head of the departments and the agencies, like the Department of State in charge of our elections, like the Department of Health, right, handling the pandemic. All of these really, really important roles to your day-to-day life. The governor's legislative authority includes preparing the state budget, proposing some legislation to the General Assembly, and the power to veto, right? Vetoes are subject to an override, 2/3 majority of the state assembly, but that's a really powerful tool, right? We have divided government right now. So you've been seeing lots of vetoes from our Democratic governor of laws coming out of, or legislation coming out of the state assembly, the General Assembly. Like I said, the lieutenant governor will become acting governor if the governor's incapacitated, unable to perform their duties. They also provide over the state Senate where he or she can vote in case of a tie. So I think that's an important role and something to be aware of. Okay, let's talk about US. These are our federal offices that are on the ballot this time. This is for Congress, right? We have the Senate and the House of Representatives. We have one open Senate seat. Pat Toomey is retiring, and there's a battle to replace him. This primary election is to pick who will be on the ballot in the fall, right? There's lots of Republicans and 3 Democrats running for to receive their party's nomination, and that's what we're doing on May 17th. So the Senate is the upper chamber of Congress. And in addition to making laws, it approves the presidential appointments. We just saw that with the historic Supreme Court approval process. And these Senate members are elected for 6-year terms. So that's a good chunk of time. I'm going to choose very carefully when it comes to evaluating your candidates for the Senate seat. The House of Representatives is the lower chamber of Congress. And Pennsylvania currently has 17 seats, right? 17 members in Congress representing Pennsylvania in their districts. We lost a seat from redistricting the last time we did the census, right? That's why when they redrew the maps, we had to go from 18 seats to 17 seats. House members are elected for 2-year terms, and all seats are up for election this year. So we're electing or re-electing our representatives in Congress. The Pennsylvania State Legislature. And so this is the PA State Senate and the PA House of Representatives. And together they make our PA legislature, and they enact laws that the governor can either sign or veto. For proposed legislation to become law, both the House and the Senate must approve it. Legislators have no term limits, and their salary is $90,000 and change there. And they also get a pretty healthy per diem that jacks that number up even higher. Pennsylvania has 50 state senators who are elected to 4-year terms, and 203 state representatives who are elected to 2-year terms. And I'm going to give you a fantastic resource for finding out who is exactly on your ballot and what district you're in. Committee people. So this May, you'll also be able to vote for your state and local committee people who represent you in your neighborhood. These are like political block captains. Every 4 years, your division, which you know from when you go to your polling place, you have that division, they can elect 2 Democratic committee people and 2 Republican committee people. And they are there to serve you. They can be super helpful in getting out the vote and informing people in your division about the different candidates. They'll distribute information about the candidates and how to cast your vote. They'll recruit poll workers and poll watchers. They're a great resource. I know they can act as a liaison one between neighbors, but also between the neighborhood and council and other, they're really helpful people you should know in your neighborhood. Okay, let's go through the ballot questions. There's 4 in Philadelphia this time. I'm going to go through what exactly they say and what it really means, right? There's a lot of legal, these are written very precisely, right? And the first ballot question is a zoning board adjustment. So the Home Rule Charter in Philadelphia is like our city's constitution. It's the document that guides, that's the rule book for how we operate our government in Philadelphia. Ballot questions typically amend that charter. It's a lot easier to amend our Philadelphia Home Rule Charter than it would be the Constitution, for instance. So if you are going to vote yes on ballot question number 1, you would approve of the adjustment to the zoning board's composition. And that means increasing the number of appointees that the mayor has from 5 to 7. So the mayor can pick 2 extra people. And it would require council's confirmation of those mayor's appointees and specify qualifications that the appointees must possess. And this is the big difference here, is including a demonstrated sensitivity to community concerns regarding development and the protection of the character of Philadelphia's neighborhoods. Right. So right now that is not necessarily a specific qualification, and this would underscore that, right, and require that. So if you vote no, you basically want the zoning board to stay the way it is. Okay. Ballot question number 2. Should the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter be amended to remove all gender-based references? Previously, in an earlier amendment, we changed councilman and councilwoman to council member throughout the charter. And this goes further, right? So currently, every time the charter refers to the mayor, it's a he or a him. This would take that out, right? And it says firemen, policemen, all of that, his or her. That. So a yes vote would mean that you would want to change the city's charter to use language that does not refer to specific genders. Instead, the charter would identify individuals using titles and descriptions that could apply to anyone. A no vote means keep it the same. Okay, ballot question number 3. This is the same exact thing as the previous one, but also applying it to the educational supplement to the Home Rule Charter. So this is everything that affects the School District of Philadelphia and the Board of Education. Ballot question number 4, the Fair Housing Commission. Should the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter be amended to establish the Fair Housing Commission as an independent commission to administer and enforce statutes and ordinances concerning unfair rental practices and other matters in the landlord-tenant relationship and adjudicating disputes in those situations? The Fair Housing Commission has operated lawfully for years as just a part of the city's government. It was never part of the formal city charter framework. So this would be embedding it into our city charter, into that city constitution. So a yes vote means you want to make it more permanent than it is now by including it in our city's charter, right? A no vote would be keeping it the same. So where are you going to learn about all the candidates running for these offices? You are going to go to ballot.70.org. I can also drop this handy video in the chat. This walks you through how to use the tool. I think it's pretty intuitive, but sometimes it helps to take a little tour first. When you go to ballot.70.org, you're going to put in your address where you're registered to vote, and then it will give you your specific ballot. So the state reps that are specific to your district, your Congress people, right? All of these offices that are not statewide, that are very specific to your neighborhood, will be on the ballot. Because it is a primary, you will click Democrat or Republican, and then you'll get all the candidates for those offices. The cool part, I think, is that not only can you click on the office, you see here, this is the sample one is for President of the United States, for instance, You could click. It will give you the description of the office that I shared earlier. And then it will give you all the candidates. You click on their little faces. You can be connected with their survey responses. You'll see all of them. If they've responded to our candidate survey, their responses will be right there. You will also see links to all of their social media and their campaign website, which is helpful to do a little additional research. And then you can click on them if you like what you see and save your pick. So you go through all the offices, you take a little time, you're investigating all these candidates, you're checking out their websites and their social. You save all your candidates, and from there, at the top here, you can print it for yourself. You can download it and save it to your phone or to your email. And you can share it with your friends and family who might not have the time or want to take the time to investigate all those candidates. If they trust your judgment and you share similar values, it's a great way to inform your friends and family and neighbors, or at least share the tool with them so that they can make their own picks. This also is a way to disrupt that sample ballot economy of candidates and ward leaders who pick their lineup, and you don't know if they align with your values or not, or what you want to see for your neighborhood. But they hand out that paper at the polling place with all their picks on it, and you'll say, no, I have my own, based on your own research. You can also, from there, make your plan to vote. You can be connected with all the resources, the website you need to apply for your mail-in ballot. You can find your polling place. You can even set a calendar reminder for when you want to head to the polls on election day so you don't miss it. It's a great resource, one-stop shopping, ballot.70.org. There you go. So if you choose to vote by mail, I had mentioned there are some tips and tricks you'll need to know to make sure that that ballot counts. And one of them is to definitely use blue or black ink, but not like a Sharpie or anything, because if it bleeds through, it will put a mark on the backside of the ballot, and it might affect the way your votes are counted on the backside. You want to make sure you fill out both sides of that ballot. No crossouts, no erasures. That will invalidate your ballot if you do that. An important thing is the secrecy envelope. In 2020, it was white. I think in 2021, it was a light blue. But it's just a plain envelope that says official election ballot. This is the secrecy envelope. The way the law is currently written, if your ballot is not in that envelope, it will not count. There's a reform effort to change that because it's a technicality, it feels, like. But as of right now, that is the law. You then have to put that secrecy envelope in the return mail envelope and make sure you sign and date and seal it. Technically, you can put any date you want. You can put your birth date, put a date 100 years in the future or 100 years in the past. As long as it has a date, it will count. If it does not have a date, it will be invalidated. Again, feels like one of those technicalities that just trips people up, but the more you know. You're probably pros at filling in scantrons and little surveys here. So filling in the circles completely. Again, making sure that mail-in ballot envelope goes in the envelope. No naked ballots. That's what that refers to. And then you want to make sure you sign and date it. I also recommend putting your return address on it so that if there are any problems or there's a mail issue, you will know. This is the website on vote.pa.gov. Pretty straightforward website. I think having looked at almost every state's Department of State website, ours is pretty great. So user-friendly. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to the Committee of 70 as you're doing this. We're happy to help get answers to your questions or walk you through it. So what if you applied to vote by mail, you have it, and you know what, you're not feeling it anymore, you want to go vote in person instead? There is a process for doing that. I suggest just getting your ballot in instead, because it does slow down the operations at your polling place when you spoil a mail-in ballot. But you can bring it in. You have to have all the pieces. and you can bring them in and hand it to your poll worker. And then there's a process for spoiling that ballot, and they'll let you vote on a machine if you're having a little bit of buyer's remorse. Okay, so about those machines. Every machine in Pennsylvania is found on vote.pa.gov/ready-to-vote. You can actually take a little time if you haven't voted recently. We got new machines a few years ago. You can check out the machines your county votes on. There's diagrams step-by-step to walk you through so you're a little bit more familiar with the way those machines look. And while voting is necessary, it is definitely not sufficient to creating the democracy we need. I will strongly encourage anyone who is interested or who has the time and energy to serve as a poll worker on election day to really consider doing so. You can go to vote.pa.gov or go to the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania. We're partnering with them to recruit poll workers across the Commonwealth. It's a need everywhere. Philadelphia needs 8,500 poll workers to pull off their elections twice a year, every year, not just in big elections. And there's 40,000 poll workers needed across the state. So it's definitely an active service. You get paid for it, a modest amount. And we have all kinds of additional recruitment and information sessions so that you will have a successful election day and feel prepared to take on that responsibility. Definitely suggest checking out the Committee of 70 and the League of Women Voters of Pennsylvania. Full disclosure, I am the president of the League of Women Voters of Philadelphia. So wearing both hats on that project for sure. Some additional resources. If you know of anyone who needs, who doesn't have an ID, but wants to vote and needs that state issued ID to make it easier to register, you can contact voteriders.org and they will assist you. Oftentimes, if you need a birth certificate from a hospital or from the state, and it's going to cost $35, they can pay for that to get you what you need to get that ID. And that, of course, is helpful for elections, but having an ID is really important for a lot of other things too. So check out voteriders.org. And if there are young people in your life or teachers in your life, I strongly encourage them to connect with PA Youth Vote. This was the brainchild of a phenomenal teacher, Tom Quinn from Central High School. He is such an advocate for young people and has amazing resources for getting students to register their peers, which is the most effective way to do that. So definitely check out PA Youth Vote for all things youth voting related. And that is it for me. We are on all the social platforms. You can check out our website, ballot.org or ballot.70.org is where you'll find that ballot tool. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but I'm happy to answer any questions that everyone has.
Great. Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Okay,
for
great.
this young lady. Hello, my name is Eva Grant. I have a question. When are the mail-in ballots going to be mailed? Because I did not receive one yet.
So if you applied already, you can go to that vote.pa.gov website and track your ballot. So you click on the mail-in ballot, and then you can put in your information and it'll tell you if it's been mailed or when it's been mailed.
Okay.
I don't believe I've seen the first wave go out yet.
Okay.
Usually my social media feeds fill. Oh, there you go. Somebody in the chat just said, I got my ballot today. So they must have just gone out that first wave. If you don't receive it in the next couple days, I would definitely continue to track and then maybe contact the city commissioners to see where it is.
Thank you very much.
No problem. And again, you can go you can go to City Hall and they'll cancel that previous ballot. That's what that barcode is so helpful for. They will void that so no one else can vote on it if it does show up somewhere. That's another one of the security measures. And they can issue a new ballot right on the spot. Any other questions?
Yes, Lauren, could you elaborate a little bit more on those ballot questions, why they're so critical?
Yeah, so the ballot questions are always something to pay attention to. In the last election, one of the ballot questions actually stripped a lot of the governor's emergency powers away from that office and put it back into the legislature, right, affecting the governor's ability to handle future crises. And in this one, the Committee of 70 is not taking positions on any of these. They are important if you think gender equity, for instance. I like the idea personally of the mayor not always being referred to as a man. But and the questions about like the zoning board affects a lot of the fair housing policy. You want people deciding those landlord tenant disputes to be reflective of the community, I would think, right? So that might be one that you consider if you want the people on that board to be more reflective of the neighborhoods they represent.
And that's important to also keep in mind when we think about ballot questions for future elections. You know, it would be, I would be remiss if I don't mention from a civil rights perspective, monitoring ballot questions, because when we think about voter suppression, strategies are different in different states. And with divided government, we recognize that legislators that are looking to change the way voting is done may try to utilize ballot questions as a workaround from legislation. So I think it's going to be important for all communities, but particularly African-American communities, to recognize that all tools of democracy will be utilized to change democracy. And it's important to remember that when we think about our advocacy to ensure that the power and the right of African-Americans and all citizens of Pennsylvania are protected.
That's absolutely right. That is a way to circumvent the governor's veto. So the governor can't veto ballot measures, right? That goes directly to the people. And you see the way they're worded, depending on how they're written, they could be very confusing and people might be voting for things that they typically pass, right? Ballot measures typically pass when they're on the ballot. So it's definitely something to pay attention to. All of the ones on this ballot are related to the city. So there's no statewide ballot questions this time. But I know the Urban League and the Committee of 70 and the League of Women Voters monitor the constitutional amendment process and those ballot measures very seriously.
At this time, we do welcome if there's other questions from the audience, feel free to show your hand or place it in the chat. Lauren, do you anticipate any disruption as it relates to lawsuits that potentially could impact this election, or is it more so the potential for the general election?
I think it's far more likely in a general election because right now it's just the parties kind of battling themselves. So if they're going to allege fraud, it would be against their own party. So that's less likely this time around. There will be poll watchers at the polling places and at the ballot counting and sorting facilities to make sure that doesn't happen. But I think that we can expect a little bit more action on that side in the general election in November.
I know one of the things that we see this year, next year, elections, there'll be a spotlight in Pennsylvania this year, and then of course, Philadelphia next year. I guess, I know you touched upon it a little bit, but maybe could you drive home in the most nonpartisan way why this election is going to be critical when we think about the current climate as it relates to not only the governor, which is term limited, but also what's happening in Congress and how both sides are monitoring and leveraging the elections to determine what bills get passed or what legislation gets moved forward.
Right. So right now we have divided government in Pennsylvania. There are the Republicans control the General Assembly where laws are written and passed. And there have been lots of laws that have passed that have been vetoed by the governor, right? Some that severely restrict access to the ballot box, women's reproductive rights, a lot of other areas, right? that have been stopped by the governor's veto pen. So whether you want to see those laws enacted or not really depends on who you put in the governor's office, right? That should be a deciding factor, I would think, in choosing your candidate for governor in the fall. Sorry, my eyes are on the chat too. The reason why Pennsylvania is in the national spot right now is because there's a 50-50 split in the US Senate. And as we see, that's key to passing any legislation, obviously needs a majority. Vice President Harris has been the deciding vote a number of times, but a few Democrats not lining up with the rest of the caucus basically stops legislation, right? So if there's an opportunity to increase that majority and pick up seats, the Democrats certainly want to take that. With Pennsylvania being a purple state, they have our eyes on that open seat with Pat Toomey retiring. And then obviously the Republicans are fighting just as hard for it because they think they have a real shot at flipping the majority in the Senate.
Great, thank you. In the chat, I don't know if you answered it. Someone asked, can you track if you are able to receive ballots permanently? Like, I know you can check voter registration status. Does it, in that form, does it say if you are requesting mail-in ballot?
No, just apply again. It doesn't require a whole lot of information to apply. You would have had to recently apply. So if that helps jog your memory, I guess, it would have had to be in this year for you'd be on the permanent list already, right? This is the first election of this year.
Great, and I'll put a link in the chat where you can check your status. This link is useful. Many folks will say that they're registered to vote, but if you check in the system, you can see if you've been potentially removed from the ballot. For instance, people may have voted and not have voted for a number of years. That will cause sometimes your name to be removed from the system. So you may think you're still registered because you registered 10 years ago, but maybe you got removed or someone else got removed. That's important to remember that you can check your own status to ensure that you are registered to vote and that you can actually vote. And it actually will tell you where you are scheduled to vote. That's something that's important. If you move, one of the things, if you move, you are expected to vote where you register. So if you move next week, but you're registered to vote in your old location, if you haven't updated your voter registration status, it will be difficult for you to vote in a new location. Lauren, will they be able to do the absentee in that instance, or would they not be allowed to vote?
So everyone has a right to vote provisionally, right? That you can always cast a provisional ballot. It gets counted a little bit later, but it still counts if you're an eligible voter. Because we have just like very specific elections on the ballot this time, your vote for governor and Senate would count no matter where you moved in Pennsylvania. If you lived here and voted somewhere else, those votes would count. But if you voted on state reps that aren't your state reps, certainly committee people are very, very specific to your neighborhood. They wouldn't count those offices, but the rest of the votes would count. And you have to be in that place for 30 days before the election. So if you move next week, keep your registration where it is and cast your ballot in your home place because it's in that 30-day window. You want to be a resident of that place for 30 days. And let me think of anything else. Oh, definitely check your party. Some people like to switch back to independent in between elections. You forget, you can't remember or something, like by error, it happens. I think it's just worth checking because you don't want to show up on election day and only get to vote on those 4 ballot questions. That would not be.
And that is something that is important. Once again, a disclaimer, some of the advocacy that we at the Urban League is doing, I know our host organizations are doing as well. In African-American communities, there's more of a desire to seek independence and want to identify independence in their voter registration status, but not recognize the potential implications in the primary election. And this is not to say that you have to pick a party, but it's more important that our community understands the implications on the decisions until something changes, right, Lauren? Because I know there is a movement and there are some stakeholders that think about open primaries, meaning that regardless of your party, you have the right to vote and pick who you would choose. That's not something that exists in Pennsylvania, but if that's something, some folks are interested in that, but other folks are not interested in that. So it's important to recognize that we as citizens can determine how our elections look. And depending upon what policies are implemented, those decisions are made. So that's why it's important, regardless of where you stand, to identify the advocacy efforts that align with your values and your policies to ensure to maintain the status quo or to change the policies, change the voting policies.
Committee of 70 is leading an initiative called ballotpa.org, and that's the effort to repeal closed primaries so that any voter who's registered would just show up on election day and say, give me the Republican ballot or give me the Democrat ballot on election day. We wouldn't have to hit that, the 15 days before the election deadline. You could decide on election day. That's really the biggest difference there. And then
that may be a separate, we may have to target a separate conversation about the pros and cons of that, because I know, there are many that may be cautious or something like that. But once again, when we think about our democracy, it's our democracy to dictate, right? We know that some have determined the Electoral College to be outdated, but some have not. So it's always important for us to remember that. Want to say if there's any last final questions, please place it in the chat or raise your hand. But if not, I do. Oh, great. Carlene did ask about the closed and open primary. Could you just reiterate that just to make sure that we're
open primaries function differently in different states. In Pennsylvania, there's a bill in motion that's the one that the Committee of 70 is supporting, but that would basically just be, and our version of open primaries would be you're a registered independent or you're a registered Democrat or registered Republican. You show up on election day and say, give me the candidates for Republicans. You vote that Republican ticket. You wouldn't be able to vote for both sides in the primary, right? You're just still getting that same party ticket. Right now, we have closed primaries, which means you only can vote on the ballot that you're registered to vote for, right? So that you can't change it after the 15-day deadline. So that's May 2nd for this election. And whatever party you're with, that's the ballot you get. That's why on election day, if you vote in person, the poll worker has to publicly announce to the machine inspector, the clerk, has to tell the machine inspector, Democrat, Republican. Some people don't like that either, but it's just their job. Because you can't tell the poll worker what slate you want to vote, right? Like it has to be what's registered in that poll book. And so it's really just the matter of that 15-day deadline, really. So that's the difference in Pennsylvania between open primaries and closed primaries.
Yeah, so an easy, I know a way that I've explained it to some folks is that in the primary election, you're figuring out, you're voting for who's the best Democrat, if you're a Democrat, who's the best Republican, if you're a Republican, and who's the best independent, if you're an independent, so that in the general election, the best of each party is on the ballot, and then you get to decide who's the winner in that example.
One in the chat asked for the legislation, and it's Senate Bill 690.
Wouldn't say one additional bill. I don't know if the bill has been officially announced in the primary, but we are monitoring some voter suppression potential bills that are being proposed around voter IDs and things like that. So once again, we encourage you to monitor these bills, and we'll make sure to communicate those implications. Once again, we as a nonpartisan organization at the moment are not necessarily taking a stance per se, but we really want individual citizens to understand. So with that, we're going to close out. Lauren, want to thank you. We want to thank you and appreciate that update. Technically, we do have 2 independents, Bernie Sanders and August King. So do recognize we have 50 Republicans, 48 Democrats, and 2 independents. The independents do tend to vote Democrat, so that gives
They
off
caucus,
that
yeah, they caucus.
they tend to
with
caucus with the Democrats. So thank you for that, Stephanie Marsh, for that. Apologize, my little ones are going crazy. So on that note, I want to say thank you, Lauren, for joining us this evening. Once again, want to thank all the host organizations for helping to bring this event this evening. We want to thank all the organizations for joining us.
Thanks so
And
much
once
for having me.
Once again, on Thursday, we will host a session at 4 o'clock where we will actually help people look at the ballot question and help them complete the ballot, their ballot directly. So we encourage you, if you know someone that's on the fence or if someone is confused with the ballot, with their voter registration form and they need help with registering to vote, we will have a Zoom on Thursday at 4 p.m. where we are able to help people. So once again, I want to thank the NAACP Philadelphia branch, the Committee of 70, Coalition of Labor Union Women, PA Youth Vote, the Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, the Philadelphia Alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, the Urban League Guild of Philadelphia, the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Pennsylvania chapter, and the Urban League of the Next Philadelphia, which is our young professional chapter of the Urban League. Quick shameless plugs. I know Next Philadelphia is hosting their Young Professional Conference, BeastCon. If you know any millennials or Gen Z that are interested, you should see it in the chat. And I definitely want to say kudos to the Omega chapter, who I believe will be hosting their 2023 North Atlantic Regional Conference in Philadelphia. So definitely next summer should be a lot of pink and green in the city. We encourage you to take advantage of those events that will be coming to the city. And if there's any other organizations that have events, if you want to put it in the chat, we'll hang out for a few quick seconds. Also want to say kudos to all candidates and all individuals that are entering into this race. We want to say good luck. Once again, this is nonpartisan conversation. This event wasn't necessarily designed to be a candidate spotlight, but nonetheless, we do want to say kudos to you for stepping into the race and good luck to you. And so with that, we will close out and we look forward to joining us in the future.